If there's one thing I think to encourage people is to start the journey, because you've got to start somewhere, to not feel intimidated that you're like climbing the mountain, to literally focus on the next, the task in front of you, and enjoy the process of like, oh, actually, I found out how I spend my money on a monthly basis, and it's different to what I had anticipated.
Welcome to another wonderful episode of Frankly Speaking. Today, we're basically going to be talking about a very important topic which should actually apply to everyone. We're going to be talking about financial literacy and the role that it plays in our lives. In our virtual studio today, we've got Tom, Frank's very own CEO, and we'll just be discussing this topic in depth. But before I get into that, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. And of course, share this video with your family and friends. Well, let's get right into it, Tom. Why should people learn about money? Why is it important for them to be financially literate and to understand the basic concepts and ideas around managing their money?
So, a lot of people have heard that saying, nothing in life is guaranteed except for death and taxes. It's apparently attributed to Benjamin Franklin, I believe. And I think that it's a sad reality that those two things are really the only things in life that you can fundamentally guarantee. Now, obviously, what does that mean, right? That means that you should know something about your physiology, your basic health, and how you can stay healthy. And I think that's really important. And obviously, you're going to have some relationship with money. So it is, I think, one of those realities in life that everyone needs to have a basic knowledge about um, money, how they can earn money. What are the different ways to save money? What are the different ways to spend money? Um, Obviously, the world of money and finance can become extraordinarily complex. But I think for most people, having a basic understanding of savings, investments, even insurance. I think a lot of people should think about how they can protect things that are very important to them. And then, obviously, last but definitely not least, I think, is credit. We all, have some relationship with lending money from others, whether that's in case of emergency or wanting to buy a house. But a lot of people unfortunately get themselves into really, really bad situations because they don't have a good understanding of those different aspects of money. And tax, we should not forget tax. Obviously, that's where the saying comes from. So yeah, to answer the question, I think in a very basic way, it just is one of the fundamentals of life that people should um, not shy away from, and actually see it as a lifelong learning pathway, right? What you know about your health and money when you're a teenager is very different from when you want to start a family, very different to when you want to buy a house. When you're in your young 20s, you maybe don't need to know the details of a mortgage, right? Because you're renting an apartment and you don't plan on buying a house anytime soon. So yeah, it really is a sort of a lifelong learning journey, which I think everyone should sign up for. So that was a long answer to a very short question.
No, it's cool. I think you've actually just summed it up. It goes back to what we've been reiterating on our content, about setting goals, budgeting, being prepared for emergencies, and of course, also understanding risk and debt management. So the knowledge and skills that you acquire through financial literacy, it helps you also manage your resources efficiently, and it also helps you to work towards your life goals and dreams with confidence and resilience.
I think somebody made a very wise comment. Is to think about the same way financial literacy is to literacy. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, being literate unlocks a world of knowledge for you. And I think most people would argue that actually, being literate is almost, yeah, it's a fundamental aspect of human life and existence. And almost every parent wants their child to be literate. And obviously, there's so much effort that goes into early child development and schooling to help kids learn how to read. And what's useful about the metaphor is it doesn't assume that you need to know every word in the dictionary, right? That's not the expectation. You need to be able to converse. You need to be able to understand things that you read and be able to communicate with other people. In the same way, I think financial literacy is around having the basics to be able to converse, right? You're talking to me about money. I need to be able to understand the things that you're saying, or you're trying to sell me something. I need to be able to comprehend what it is you're trying to sell, and then obviously be able to action. So I'm going to make certain plans, I'm going to make certain provisions, budgeting, and things like that. So in many ways, you have that sort of literacy dynamic. You want to be able to understand and you want to be able to act with a basic level of knowledge that is, obviously to your best interests.
No, 100%. I fully agree with you. Now, why is financial literacy so important to Frank as a brand and to you as a person? I mean, you have a background in engineering, right? But you've ended up building such an incredible platform for South Africans. And at some point, you also had to sit down and learn about finance to fully understand what space you were entering for yourself, too, as well, for your day to day activities. So, could you perhaps expand on the purpose at Frank and also share some of your personal experiences in learning and applying these literacy skills?
So I think what's really interesting is that, my personal family situation, nobody was very good with money. My mom was a maths teacher and worked very hard, had to, did extra lessons. So I think she was almost too busy to think about money. She was good at budgeting, but, thinking for the future and investing for the future, I just don't think she had the time to wrap her head around it. And my dad was a pilot and his only passion in life was flying. And as a result, I could see my parents not make good decisions. I mean, now that I've grown up in life, I'm like, wow, we made some bad decisions, or that, as a family, there were some bad decisions that were made. And my personal journey as an engineer was very technical for a long period of time. So I was a student. I did my doctorate. Spent a lot of time. I call it like a delayed adolescent. So by the time I eventually came around to starting my first job, I think which was at the tender age of 33. Let's not really talk about it. Um, yeah, I started having to make decisions about what to do with the money that I was earning, and then my exposure to the world of finance was um, one of rebellion. I was like, why is it so complicated? I don't react very well to sales pitches, to salesmen, and so when people are trying to bamboozle you with complex words or like make it very complicated, I have this like innate reaction which is very rebellious. I was like, damn you, it doesn't have to be like that. And I think Frank was really born out of that, um, yeah, reaction. And I do think that actually, especially for most people that don't have a professional career or don't have a background in finance, that there's a lot of benefits to knowing the basics, and that might not make you an expert, but it might mean that you can get 80% of the way there. Like that 80-20 rule, I think, when it comes to money is definitely true. So yeah, I think that's, the reason why Frank came into existence was to help people like me. And I know that there are many other people who, money matters wasn't something that was really discussed in the family. They maybe don't have a easy point of call. There's not like a parent or a grandparent or a friend that they can easily go to for a real trusted source of advice, but still want to make good decisions about what to do with their money, both in terms of saving, protecting, investing for the future, and even borrowing and trying to kind of do wise things with that.
Thank you for that. Now, let's briefly touch base on previous studies, such as the South African Social Attitude Survey, with their latest report from 2020, right? They had a couple of questions across various categories, such as inflation, your basic math, the calculation of interest, just to name a few. And Frank actually noticed that there was something missing. which is where the financial literacy quiz comes in, right? So let's talk about it. What was the quiz all about, and what was its actual purpose?
So, yeah, when you look at what's happening in the state of financial literacy in South Africa, there's actually not a lot of data. So, I was able to find two sources. Um, One, there was a large international survey done by Standard and Poor, which most people know. The S&P 500 is commonly well known. Um, and they found that 42% of South African adults are financially literate. And although that put us third in the continent, I don't think that's particularly something we should be proud about, which means obviously, less than half the population are actually making good decisions about money. Um, and then more locally, every few years, the Human Sciences Research Council conducts the sort of South African social attitude survey. And they have a few questions in there around financial literacy, but they're quite limited. So they just focus on basic concepts like inflation, for example, and also some basic financial maths. But they don't touch on anything that's credit, investing, understanding fees, or insurance for that matter. So what they have found, though, granted, is that since 2015, they found that the level was similar with Standard and Poor's, which I think is good. At least you show the data and the sort of consistency in the research is there, but that it's been declining. So across all of the sort of subcategories that they had, every year there's sort of a few percentage points lower in terms of people answering correct questions, um, which I think is the worrying trend, right? We should be hopefully improving over time. Literacy should be improving over time, but it's not. So that really was the motivation for us trying to raise some awareness around this and create a survey which covered more aspects, specifically credit, tax, understanding fees a little bit better,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to basic concepts and sort of some basic financial maths. And our hope and attempt is to kind of get a more comprehensive view of the state of knowledge in those areas. Um, So, that was the origin of the survey and why for us at the moment, I think we're really passionate about trying to drive awareness and for people to take stock of themselves and say, like, actually, how much do I know? Maybe they'll be surprised pleasantly or hopefully not unpleasantly surprised.
I think that leads me up to this next question. Do you perhaps feel that financial institutions and fintech companies have an obligation of some sort in teaching people about financial literacy?
It's a very good question. And, my obvious immediate answer is they should, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you know, um, very often when it comes to kind of the marketplace, people capitalize on information asymmetry, right? Which is a technical way of saying I'm going to take advantage of you not knowing as much as I know.
Mm.
And that's a problem, right? Because if you have almost, two-thirds of the population which don't know as much as the person who is selling them something, the chances are they're going to be taken advantage of. And that's proven to be the case. So
Mm.
yes, it saddens me that more companies don't take this as something that is important and core to their business. Obviously, at Franc, we're trying to help people invest for the future and grow their money. And that's definitely in their personal interests. And we want to walk that journey with them.
Mm.
So, knowing why saving and investing is so important and knowing that investing as opposed to gambling is actually far better if you're wanting to grow your money over the long term, and which is why we invest so much effort in trying to raise awareness, educate our users, and give away a lot of free access to our online academy. Yeah, but the sad reality is I don't think that's happening generally in the market. The one exception, and it should be noted, is Old Mutual. Every year they run the Savings and Investment Monitor survey, which is wonderful. It's a very comprehensive. They've done it for now, I think, almost 15 years. So it's a very standardized methodology, which allows you to look at sort of trends over time, but it's very much focused on behavior. So they don't measure knowledge, which I think is missing an opportunity, because obviously, for me at least, knowledge and behavior are sort of two sides of the same coin. How much you know is going to inform what you do,
Mm,
and
100%.
only testing or only evaluate or only assessing what you do is missing it, because then why are they doing that? Are they doing that because they're being sold it, or are they doing because they don't know any better? Um, and you need to interrogate what you know so that you can say, okay, well, there's a big gap here. People are gambling because they really believe it's a good way to grow your money. Bad idea.
And what are some other tips and resources you could share with our audience for improving financial literacy? Like this could be anything. It could be apps, books, online courses, literally anything.
Yeah, so I think the first thing to know is there are some free resources. Obviously, I've mentioned our academy, and I do think it's a great starting point for anybody. It really takes you from the very beginning, like what is money, and then obviously builds up to more complicated aspects. Um, the other is, there's Smart About Money. It's again a free resource online, smartaboutmoney.co.za. And oh, sorry, you reach our academy at franc.app/academy. Both of those are good tools and are written in language that is accessible, I believe, for people to understand. And I think as you move along, then, the next stage is actually taking control of your money. And the starting point there is a good budget. So what's happening with your cash? How much is coming in? How much is going out? Of your expenses, where are they going? So
Mm,
we have a few tools on our website, a budgeting tool, franc.app/budget. That's obviously the apps and platforms like 22/7, they're a partner of ours, where you can use that tool to understand your expenses. So you can categorize expenses. Okay, these are uh, my must-haves, my important things, like my rent, my food. Um, but then it also allows you to categorize your discretionary expenses. Like this is my budget for eating out, or like my clothes, or I don't know, my
mm,
coffees, my fast food, whatever you want to put into that, so that you can begin to see, okay, well, I'm overspending in this area. Maybe I can cut back there. Or wow, my debt repayments are really high. That's crazy that I'm spending so much money on my store cards or on my credit card.
mm.
I really got to figure out how I can cut back on that. So there are a few tools out there that can allow people to start the journey, I think, in both understanding and then kind of like, taking stock. And then I think once you've done that, you've done the majority. You've really done more than most in being aware of where you are and hopefully where the gaps are. And then fulfilling the gaps, those that's very specific in terms of trying to plug that.
So I'm currently reading a book called The Psychology of Money. I'm not sure if you know it. It's by Morgan Housel. And I mean, I've just started, but I love how he highlights behavior, and how we behave with money. We understand money as investing, personal finance, business decisions, and it's usually taught in a specific way, which is math based with all this data and formulas. I mean, that could scare anyone, including myself. Um, in the real world, people don't always make financial decisions on a spreadsheet, for instance. They make them at a dinner table, they make them in meetings, wherever their personal history is concerned, and also how they actually view the world, including marketing, by the way. So there's like a whole long list. You just need to know and understand what also influences these decisions on the daily.
100%. I've read the book, and I also think it's mandatory reading. I think everybody should read it. And what really struck me is knowing how irrational we are when it comes to money, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think knowing, like anything, it's like knowing more about yourself and how you interact with the world. Obviously, in this case, it's a very specific dimension of that. It's, your relationship with money. Um, yeah, can pull apart some unexpected observations about uh, how you save, how you spend, um, what you think is a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just one thing to comment on this is to acknowledge that unfortunately we are not living on an island in the absence of any ads. And companies spend a lot of money, and marketing departments spend a lot of money almost taking advantage, I think, of our irrationality.
Oh,
So you have to know that you've got competition, right? People are
mm,
sort of knocking on your door, so to speak, to kind of help you part with your money.
mm,
So to know a little bit about the strategies and the techniques that they're using, I think are important, right? Because it's like, okay, um, I do have a vulnerability here, so I
mm.
shouldn't, hypothetically, go to the casino at this time of the day, right? Because there's a chance that I'm going to lose my money.
And I think just to add on to that, I mean, if you're teachable and literally always striving to learn, I feel like you'll always be in a better position.
100%, man. And that's why I sort of mentioned earlier, like it really is like I'm learning new things all the time.
Mm,
And what's nice about that is knowledge is power. Like as you learn, you feel more confident. Um, and hopefully it inspires you to keep on learning, right? I think it's definitely one of my um, guiding principles in life is the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And that's not actually, I don't see it as a negative, right? I don't see it as like, oh God, I haven't finished the race yet, right? It's not seeing it as a race. It's actually
mm,
enjoying this process. It's like you're going on a hike in the mountains or something, or you're going for a walk in the forest, and it's like as you come around a corner, you see there's another valley, or there's another, you know, the opportunities of further exploration increase, and you realize you haven't even walked there yet. There's a whole new areas you haven't figured out. So it definitely is. If there's one thing I think to encourage people is to start the journey, because you've got to start somewhere. To not feel
mm,
intimidated that you're like climbing the mountain. To
yeah.
literally focus on the next, the task in front of you, and enjoy the process of like, oh, actually, I found out how I spend my money on a monthly basis, and it's different to what I had anticipated, and almost be excited about learning something new about yourself, and then yeah, okay, like what does that mean? What's the next thing? How can I do better at that, or cut expenses in that regard, or how do I get better credit because I'm paying too much for it, or whatever the case may be.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Tom. Much appreciated. And thank you to our audience for watching and listening to this. Please download the Frank app today so you can get started on saving and investing. The platform literally has all the necessary tools for anyone to get started. In the description, we've also put down a few links to our academy content, the Frankly Speaking blog, as well as the financial literacy report, of course. So do check that out. Until next time, bye.